check out the Murderific True Crime Podcast, hosted by Bernadette from the state of Maine. Topics will include some seriously true scary stories about serial killers, mass murderers, familicides, the missing, and unsolved cases. Go to www.murderific.com to start listening now or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Until then, we will be executing podcasts one crime at a time.
Just so you know, this show is about scary stuff. So don't say I didn't warn you guys. And remember, don't be scared.
Episode 78. Cousins. War Baby here with another episode of Murderous Minors. On Thursday, September 24th, 2020, 15-year-old Charles Lamar Alexander was arrested after his mother contacted authorities. She let them know that her son had confessed to a murder and that she was in fear of him. The teen was charged with second-degree murder and third-degree armed grand theft of a firearm in the shooting death of 46-year-old Corey Smith, coach of the Miami Senior High School football team and a respected educator and mentor in the Miami, Florida area for over 20 years. On this episode of Murderous Minors, we visit Miami-Dade County, Florida, and look at two shocking intertwined crimes that have taken place there over the span of less than 1 year. Coach Corey thought of 15-year-old Charles as his nephew, though technically the two are cousins. Charles' father, Lamar Alexander, and Corey Smith were cousins, but the pair grew up together and had been raised as brothers. Corey tried to be a role model to the boy, as he had for countless other kids in the community. He began his career with the Miami-Dade School District in 1999. In addition to working at the high school, Corey also taught physical education at Charles Drew Middle School in Brownsville. Not only did he work at more than one school, but he gave time for the past 13 years to the Miami-Dade Boys and Girls Club at Gwen Cherry Park, and working alongside musician Luther Luke Campbell of 2 Live Crew fame.
Corey, he's just a pillar of the community. It's hard to believe that he's gone. He really cared about helping kids and helping people in the community. He has coached so many kids from Dalvin Cook to Joe Yerby, T.Y. Hilton. It's a number of kids. He was more of a community, a guy that embraced football and used football to help, kids extend their career outside of the park and high school into college. He embraced the challenge because he has such a level of respect in the community that he can get kids over there to play for him. And when they play for him, they play at a very high level because, he's a park coach just like myself, and we know the difficulties of getting kids from one place to the next, but mentoring them and helping them become better persons. I'm pretty sure, Dade County authorities are going to do a thorough investigation and find out who was the person responsible for this and bring them to justice.
Coach Corey Smith is remembered as a dedicated and dependable mentor and had a tremendous impact on untold numbers of kids, current Colts wide receiver T.Y. Hilton included, whom Corey coached in middle school. His love for helping kids become their best, of course, extended to his family as well. So when his nephew Charles called somewhat out of the blue and asked to come stay, Corey didn't hesitate. The boy had no doubt had an emotionally tumultuous 2020 so far, and the few years prior to it hadn't been the greatest either. For one thing, back in May of 2018, he and 2 other teens had been arrested and charged with making a bomb threat after administrators at Georgia Jones Ayers Middle School in Allapattah, Florida, received multiple phone calls from inside the campus saying that a bomb would be detonated if they didn't evacuate the school. Once juvenile proceedings began, however, Charles was deemed incompetent to stand trial, which would shockingly happen 3 more times over the next 2 years. His last evaluation was June 1st of 2020, just under 4 months before calling his Uncle Corey to see if he could come stay. Besides the troubles of his own, the teen had to grapple with his father's divisive actions and the aftermath of his very public death. 41-year-old Lamar Alexander had taken quite a different path than the brother who went on to coach high school football. A father of 3 in total, Lamar had rented a car and acted as a getaway driver in a jewelry store robbery at the Bell Tower Shops in South Fort Myers, Florida, back in 2008. One of 4 accomplices, the robbery turned into a 50-mile pursuit and gun battle with police. Thankfully, no one was killed in the ordeal. Lamar Alexander took a plea deal, was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and was paroled in September of 2017. He and another cousin, 41-year-old Ronnie Jerome Hill, began devising a plan, seemingly without the knowledge of any other family members or friends. Ronnie Hill had a record of his own, with his first offense having been burglary with a battery at the age of 15. More recently, he had done a 10-year stint in federal prison for holding a postal worker hostage and robbing the office. Once paroled, he continued to have run-ins with the law before being incarcerated on a burglary charge and paroled in February of 2017. Both cousins seemed to get their lives on a stable track over the next year or more, so their families were astonished to learn that both men were in the midst of an attempted armed robbery, carjacking, and high-speed pursuit and shootout with police. It was the week after Thanksgiving 2019 and prime holiday shopping time when Coral Gables, Florida police received a silent alarm from a high-end jewelry store on the Miracle Mile, an upscale shopping district known for luxury stores and dining. Employees had buzzed in who they thought was a mail carrier, as the person was clearly wearing a shirt and hat that read United States Postal Service. What they couldn't see was the flesh-colored stocking covering the man's face, making them even more surprised when he entered the store and fired his gun once at the floor. The owner of this Regent Jewelers was armed, and he shot back, even shooting out some windows of the U-Haul getaway van that the man was climbing into. Waiting inside the van was Ronnie Hill, and after his cousin Lamar Alexander climbed in and they took off, they realized that this vehicle was spotted and bullet-riddled, and they needed to dump it. The pair then crossed paths with 27-year-old Frank Ordonez, a 5-year UPS employee who was covering a shift for a coworker who had called in sick. The father of 2 young daughters had begun his career as a package handler before getting a position as a driver, with some reports indicating he had just completed his training the previous day. Frank was the kind of dad who bought new sneakers for himself, but only if he could also get his 3- and 5-year-old daughters matching pairs. For Christmas, he had gotten his mother all of the inflatable yard decorations that she wanted, as well as a few more for his daughters. On December 5, 2019, Frank was covering a shift for a coworker who had called in sick. Police were nearby when the silent alarm came through and arrived at the scene in moments, but did not engage with the suspects at that point. Once the cousins carjacked the U-Haul, the 3 traveled up the Florida Turnpike onto Okeechobee Road, then onto Interstate 75. With police in full pursuit, they entered Pembroke Pines, even crossing into a residential retirement community twice throughout the chase. The driver and passenger doors were both open as the car raced through rush hour traffic, and the back doors were even open most of the time, allowing for the carjackers to fire at police from multiple angles. The FBI joined in on the pursuit since the attempted robbery of the jewelry store fell under protection by the Hobbs Act relating to interstate commerce. And not only that, carjacking was involved, which is a federal offense. And finally, around 5:40 p.m., the UPS truck came to a halt behind cars waiting at a red light in the city of Miramar, 23 miles from the Regent Jewelers they tried to rob. Officers took the opportunity to move in on foot with numerous helicopters overhead feeding live coverage to viewers used to seeing most pursuits end in an uneventful arrest. But on December 5, 2019, we watched in horror as a full-fledged firefight broke out at that intersection and all 3 occupants of the UPS van were shot dead on live TV. Also killed that day was 70-year-old Richard Cutshaw, a union employee of 50 years who was scheduled to retire the following week. As he waited at that intersection, then tried to creep away from what was going on behind him, law enforcement shot at the UPS truck and a bullet pierced his back windshield, killing him in the driver's seat of his sedan. Richard Cutshaw was remembered by those who worked with him as a skilled negotiator with a persistent smile and constantly positive attitude. He was survived by 5 siblings and his 99-year-old mother. Lamar Alexander had called his mother during the heist, and she and other family members got to their TVs in time to see the traumatic, tragic aftermath, as did some of Frank Ordonez's family, though at first they didn't realize it was him. But once he saw his body fall from the passenger side, riddled with bullets, Frank's brother knew, and the family maintains that law enforcement acted recklessly. This episode is brought to you by Best Fiends. It's finally October, and no matter what the weather is like where you are, I think it's safe to say that we're all feeling thankful that autumn has arrived. With the drop in temps and the leaves changing colors, thoughts can't help but turn to Halloween, and even Best Fiends is getting in on the fun. From costumed characters to creepy ghouls, playing Best Fiends throughout the month of October is just one more way to get into the spooky spirit. There's nothing cuter than seeing our favorite characters all dressed up for Halloween, and with new levels, outfits, and challenges all month long, you're in for a howlin' good time. Best Fiends is famous for being impossible to put down, and with October's new themed play, you'll be saying just one more level time and time again. With new levels, challenges, and events added constantly, there's never a chance to get bored. Download Best Fiends free today on the Apple App Store or Google Play. That's friends without the R. Best Fiends. On the day after the melee in Miramar, multiple media outlets, including WPLG's Ian Margol, spoke to Coach Corey Smith, who described himself in the interviews as Lamar Alexander's brother. At that time, he said, quote, "I didn't know he was living like that. He just made bad decisions in life, and it cost him his. In life, you gotta make better decisions. We weren't raised like that. I love my brother, but he's been making bad decisions his whole life." Just over 9 months later, according to Corey's wife, Lamar's teenage son Charles called in late September to see if he could come stay. The couple hadn't heard from Corey's nephew at all since his father's televised death and the heartbreaking aftermath that has ensued. She indicated that Corey picked his nephew up on the evening of Sunday, September 20th, 2020. Later, she went to work as usual, leaving the pair at the Smith home in West Little River, Florida. At some point between 7:52 and 9:12 a.m., police allege that 15-year-old Charles Lamar Alexander found more than $7,400 in cash in his uncle's bedroom, which he took and hid in the back pocket of a pair of his jeans before putting those in a black bag with his possessions. Authorities contended that Charles next removed an unloaded 9mm Beretta handgun from Corey's bedside table, loading it before taking it into the den of the home and shooting Corey Smith multiple times. The arrest report states that he next called his mother, who came to the scene, then called 911. However, examination of a neighbor's security camera footage showed police that no one else entered through the front door that morning. When investigators arrived after 2 911 calls from sources they don't publicly identify,